Hello everyone and welcome. I am a dude on YouTube and I am here today in order to review a board game. A board game named Dungeon. It's not Dungeon Quest, it's not Dungeon Keeper, it's not Dungeon Run, it's Dungeon. And it's an old game. It was released back in the 70s by TSR in order to function as a gateway game to get ordinary people to play Dungeons and Dragons. Some may wonder why it is being re-released now by Wizards of the Coast. Some think it has outlived its time, really, that it is too simplistic for today's board gamers, that games like Descent and even Dungeon Quest is generally just superior. Now, is that true? Some would argue that people like me only like Dungeon because we are being, we've played it before, we are being nostalgic is the word I'm looking for. Maybe. But there are some things about Dungeon that sets it apart from other fantasy board games like Dungeon Quest or even Talisman. You know, in Dungeon, the dungeon is set, it's not randomly generated. You have areas of lower risk, areas of horrendous risk, and areas of middle risk. And your quest is, of course, to get in, get treasure, and get out, as in any similar game. And it's pretty simplistic. You choose where you want to go, you see what monsters you meet, and you roll the dice. And yeah, the rules are kind of simple. It's just a 4-page rule leaflet with many big pictures, so that's kind of simplistic. Simplistic, some of you might say. That's 4 pages with printing on both sides. Yeah, but that is simplistic, you know. These are the rules of Dungeons and Dragons, the game which this game originally was meant to make you interested in. So, how do you play Dungeon? Yeah, you choose a hero. In this updated version we have wizards, warriors, clerics and rogues. The clerics are actually just holy warriors of some kind. They don't have any special powers over the undead, and they can't heal or anything like that. So I really don't know why they're called clerics. Anyhow, you choose one of those and you begin in the Great Hall. And from there on, when it's your turn, you can move 5 steps and choose where you go. Your quest is, as I said, to gather enough treasure to win. If you're a warrior, you need 20,000 gold to win. If you're a wizard, you need 30,000. And the rogue and the cleric need only 10,000. And of course, the more dangerous monsters you challenge, the higher the risk, but also the greater the reward. So if you are the warrior, maybe you should go to one of the more dangerous areas, the lower dungeon levels, as it's called in Dungeon. And yeah, because there are more bigger treasures hidden there, which the weaker characters can't really get at. And if you're playing a weaker character, you really want to try to clear up the higher levels, the lower numbered levels, before any of the more powerful ones can do it, because you're kind of stuck if they're all cleared out and you don't have your 10,000 gold. That basically is it. You can choose what level of challenge. It's not like in Talisman where you're like, yeah, I'm gonna go to that field over there, it looks like a farmer's field, and there you meet the Lord of the Pit. No, that won't happen. If you go in here, you're gonna meet like a level 1 monster. It's a dire rat. However, if you go down here, We're gonna meet a level 6 monster. It's a purple worm. Yeah, I know purple worm won't sound very scary for those of you who don't play Dungeons and Dragons, but it is kind of major, really. Yeah, and so, how does the mechanics of the game work? Well, as I said, you move. There are doors, there are secret doors, which you have to roll the dice to find, and the rogues, of course, are better at finding them. They need to have some advantage. And yeah, dice. You only use these d6s. But it is only d6s, you know, in Dungeons and Dragons you use dice of different shapes and sizes. So, is it any good? Well, I would say it is. Some would say it all comes down to rolling the correct numbers on the dice. Well, in a way, what board games, except like chess, isn't down to the dice when you get down to it. Well, of course, in Talisman, it's what cards you draw as well. Here, however, you actually have pretty good control over what cards you get to draw. Some say that that makes it better because you have more control of your destiny. Some say it makes it even worse because then it's only down to the dice, not even down to cards and dice, only dice. I don't know, I think this can actually work pretty well, but you have to be several players. It's no good for 2 players. Some people out there on the internet, however, say that it's only fun for kids, and people like me only likes it because we played it as kids. But who knows? Now let's take a look at the components of the game. This is the game board. She's a pretty nice one, though a bit cheaply made. It looks much nicer than the old 70s and 80s versions, but the rooms are smaller. The old versions, you could like put the cards on the rooms. Even these tiny little cards now, which are really tiny, see, are too big to put on the rooms on the map. So instead you use a number system. You put number tokens on the rooms and then the corresponding cards here when monsters and treasure in rooms have been discovered. And so here are the cards. Tiny cards for treasure, monsters, and spells for the wizard. And here are the player character tokens. No real miniatures, just cardboard thingies. But they look kind of good. Really kind of cheaply made game, but then again, it was cheap. Here are some tokens of different kinds. The gravestone tokens you put up when you have defeated a monster, so no more monsters can be encountered in that room. And there are the cheap dice. As for player versus player, it's all very indirect in this game. You can try to ruin stuff for the other players by taking the rooms they were planning to take, or you can hang around them and hope some monster twats them on the head so they lose treasure and then you steal it. But there are no rules for player versus player combat. But, of course, that can be house ruled. I will certainly have house rules for pushing each other down the hole. There is the burrow. I wonder if we can meet the Weasley family there.